Hello, I'm Christi Friesen, and I am here at Cool Tools. And guess what we're doing? Steampunk. Oh yeah, steampunk is not dead, baby. It is alive and well, and it is going to work its way into your studio by the time I'm done talking. So are you ready for that? We're going to do a heart. We're going to embellish it steampunkery, and it's going to be a blast. Okay, so here's some of the things you're going to need for this project. We're going to be working with polymer clay. I like Primo. It's just my favorite, but all polymer clays are fabulous, and you can use just about any color that you want. I'm going in a steampunk direction, so I'm using sort of a coppery color here, but it's really up to you what you want to do. There's gold and browns and all kinds of stuff. Then you're going to need just a few tools. You don't need much. You can use a roller or a pasta machine when you condition your clay. And all that is getting it soft and flexible. You can do that by hand. Many people find having a pasta machine or a roller handy. So that's nice. Then I'm going to cut the wire, so a pair of wire cutters and pliers, of course, are amazing. But again, you can make a hole through it instead of using a wire piece, so you don't have to do that. Then we've got a few paintbrushes to apply powders. Speaking of powders, I'm using PanPastels. Any kind of powder goes on polymer clay. Mica powder, chalk powder, pigment powder, even eyeshadows can work, but PanPastels are like the primo of the powders. So we'll talk more about that. Then a few happy little tools. Cutting blade. Most people that play with polymer love this kind of big tissue blade thing. It lets us make nice cuts, but you can also use a craft knife, not a problem. And we already talked about paintbrushes. Pair of needle nose tweezers is very handy to position tiny little bits and pieces, which we will do in this project. And then an array of sculpting tools. These are all my favorites. This is from my product line, and they are wonderful. This is called the Wow It's Awesome tool because, wow, it is awesome. It's stainless steel. It has wonderful balance. It will push the clay around. They're fantastic. And the other ones that you might want to get as well, the Can't Live Without It tool. And this one, the Gotta Have It tool, I also call this the wedgie maker, and you'll see why in a minute. But all of these tools are wonderful. Now, you don't have to invest in expensive tools to work with polymer clay. You could use toothpicks and things that you have lying around the house, but once you start playing with it and like it a bit, having a little nicer tool like this is going to make a big difference. Now specifically, I'm also got a few little steampunk gears, and what those are bits and pieces from an old watch. You can buy those in kits. You can find an old watch and take it apart, although that's a lot of work. And you can also get reproduction pieces, so that all works well. But I like using the real thing whenever I can. In addition, I've got some head pins and just a little finding, just a jewelry spacer. So you can make do with whatever looks steampunky in your set. And what is steampunk? Steampunk is mad scientist turn of the century look. So it's a lot of leathers and gears and steam, but with just that little bit of weird science, mad scientist kind of edge around the middle. Okay, I think we're getting ready to work. What do you think? You got your clay? All right, let's roll. All right, I started with a blob of clay that's about the size of a cherry, and I've already conditioned it, and I want to roll it in my hands to make it round, because now I can look and see if there's any cracks, any creases, any weird colorations, any cat hairs, and just get that nice and pretty to work with. Now I'm going to make a teardrop out of this. And the way I do that is I usually put my hands together, and this is the classic, yes, I would like a slab of cheesecake, put it right here, please, position. So I'm going to put the clay there, and I'm just going to roll in the wedge that my little palms make back and forth so that I'm squeezing part of that circle into an elongated shape. Now you can have a short fat heart, or you can make it long and skinny. It's really up to you. To make it skinnier, you're just bringing your hands a little bit more parallel and continuing the rolling process. All right, so now you've got what will become our heart. I'm just going to flatten it a little bit, because for this to rest nicely in your décolletage, you're definitely going to have it a little bit more flat. So that's what we've got. Now you take your wedgie maker. This is the Gotta Have It tool, which we talked about at the beginning, and I love it because if I just roll it right up and down in the middle, I'm going to make just a little crack. Now I've made this off center because I feel like it, but you can make yours symmetrical. They can go in any direction. Hearts can be freeform or they can be absolutely perfect. It's all up to you. So once you roll back and forth, shoving that clay, now you've got a wedge. Let's make it pretty. with your fingers, you just get in there gently and soften those cut edges. So now it looks like little hillsides, double scoop of ice cream, and soften, adjust. I usually make the one that's a little bit bigger, also taller, because that's fun. And let's adjust this too. What looks pretty is just kind of making a little bit of a curve to it. So look, we've got a really interesting little heart shape now. Remember I told you you didn't have to have the wire cutter and pliers, because you could just use a toothpick or whatever and pierce a hole through the middle. A needle tool will work, toothpick, bamboo skewer, and that will leave an opening so that you could thread some thread or a leather or even a chain through there if you wanted. But I'm going to make a hoop because I find that really fun. 20 gauge wire works perfectly. Just about any kind of wire will be great. First thing you're going to do is use your pliers and bend a little hook in the end, just like this. Now the reason is wire and metal do not naturally stick to polymer. If you put it in, it's going to seem like they're best of friends, but when you're out there on the disco floor and you're swinging that pendant around, eventually it's going to lose its grip and fling across the room and hit somebody in the eye. There'll be a lawsuit, and the whole life as you know it will take a downward turn. We don't want that. So if you put this little hook in it, then when you put that in the clay, it's going to harden around it and you won't be able to pull it out. And your life can be as beautiful and wonderful as it's always been. So hook. I'm going to hold this just a little above it and bend it over my finger just to make a nice rounded loop. Wire works really good when you let it bend itself. Try not to get your tools in there. You're going to have a better look. If you want, you can continue to make this even more hoopty-loopty by pulling this wire even more. And I'm going to again just get my hands in the picture, not too many tools at this stage because it's a nice soft wire, and I've looped it around itself to make an even more hippy-dippy loop, which I like. And then I'm just going to trim the end. Now you might say, but wait, don't you have to put a hook on the end there too? You can if you want, but this is usually more than enough to anchor it. So I'm going to just put the one. So far I've had no lawsuits, so I feel correct in telling you one hoop is enough. And I'm going to put that just in. You see how I press that into the clay, pinch it around there, and you see where as it's pushed in, it kind of creates a little bit of a line. I'm going to come back with my other tool, and this is the Can't Live Without It, because you just really can't live without this one. And I'm going to come back and just kind of roll it. It is like a super smoother. I've made all that clay look all healed and happy. All right, so now we've got a perfect little happy heart to get all steampunky with. Well, the easiest thing to do is use our gears, but before we do that, let's just put like a little strap on there, because it always looks good to have straps on your hearts, don't you think? So I'm going to cut that, and of course I cut right into my heart. But look at how easy polymer clay heals, no problem. All right, so now I've got this little bit. Going to take my roller, flatten that out a little bit more, nice and thin and flat. Lift that off if you need to. Your blade underneath will lift it straight off. And I'm just going to cut it into a little strap and put that wrapped around some part of your heart. And of course, I'm going to put it right where I made that little goof with the cut. So even if it wasn't already blended, you would never see it. So I've wrapped it around and I'm pinching it in the back so the two are grabbed. Now I'm just going to take that blade and I'm going to cut straight down so that I have a flattened area in the back. You can make that join if you want, or you can leave it just like this. All right, so now if you have any kind of tool handle that's got texture on it, feel free to roll that over the surface and give it a kind of a metallic feel. Since this is all steampunk, you can have metal feeling, leather feeling, lacy feeling, it all works. So there's this. Now let's go to our gear mixture. The reason I have head pins is because I like to stack up the gears and I want to attach them. Remember what I said, metal doesn't stick? So you can't just like stick it all in there and hope for the best. You're going to have to stack up your metals onto a head pin and then attach it into the clay with that head pin. And I will show you that right now. So I've got my little spacer, my random gear, my who knows what that is piece, and the head pin's holding it all together. I'm going to trim away the excess. And then I'm going to use my pliers again to make the same kind of little hook on the end. And now you know why. That's going to anchor it in. Holding it with my needle nose tweezers so I can kind of decide where would this look the best. How about right here? So I'm going to position it, get it how I like it, and then really shove it down in so it's grabbing into the clay a little bit. That will help it stay put. Okay, so now I'm going to put this little gear on, but I think this head pin might be a bit too small. It'll go through that hole. So I went and grabbed a teeny little glass bead. That should make it a little bit bigger. Let's see if that works. Now all this stuff goes into your clay and then into the oven, because none of these things are going to melt or have any kind of slumping at the temperature that we're working on. So you don't want to put in plastics or acrylics or lucite, because those things will melt and slump in the oven. But anything with metal and glass and crystal, you're fine. All right, so now I've got another little one, head pin, a little glass to hold it in place. And let's see where that one would look good. Just kind of move it around until you find the spot you like the best and shove it in. I really do like to make sure that all of my bits are really pushed deeply into the clay and really grabbed tightly. All right, so now I've got a nice little arrangement here. I can get more fancy, add more things to it, but for our purposes, I think we're looking pretty good. It's got a nice feel to it, but that clay's kind of boring, isn't it? I mean, it's just one color. That's kind of dumb. Well, I've got some other little things here that I think we can use to make it really pop. So here's all my browns, and I'm going to start putting all my shadows on first. Let's start with this medium brown here and start adding just a little. Bring over my nice little cloth rag so that I can clean my brush in between applications. I am using PanPastels, which I frickin' love. They are just the best because they're so creamy and they go on so nicely, and you can blend color after color on top of each other and get just the most delightful look. But it is a thick pastel, so you want to make sure you've cleaned your brush in between using it so you don't get too much on there, because it will go a little crazy. If you get too much, tape is your friend. Just a little bit of clear tape will take care of that right away. All right, so I've got black as well, but I feel like my brown here is quite nice. I probably don't even need any black. It's dark enough. I'm going to use a little lighter brown on here to kind of give it a leathery feel. And then why don't we get a little bit of green and pop a fake patina on there. Now you see how I covered that up? If I want to see those textures, all I've got to do is take a little bit of tape and rub and lift, and you're going to see that texture pop right out again. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Now that has kind of an old, rough, leathery look. All right, I've got some green here. Let's put some of that green in here to kind of give it a faux bit of patina. Isn't that nice? I'm just going to dab it around here and there. Not much, but just enough to give it another little hint. Oops, that's my leather. I don't want patina on my leather. Let's take that off. See, tape. It's your friend. It's so nice. Okay, a little bit more green. And we went from all one boring color to nice nuance. And the last little thing you can do if you want is go back and take your tool and maybe scratch a little bit here and there, because it's kind of old and worn, right? So we can make little scratch marks and make it look like it's been around the block once or twice. That fits in with that turn of the century mad scientist look. We're feeling pretty steampunk now. All right, what do you think? Little scratches here. Oops, clean that up. Clay is very forgiving, so if something goes where you don't expect, just use your tool to bring it back to where you want. All right, so now we have something that has the look of an old piece, and it's all done with polymer, a little bit of gears, and our PanPastel. Okay, so all there is left to do is to bake it. As you remember, polymer clay needs the heat of an oven to cure. So you're going to follow the directions on your package of clay, which will tell you what temperature and how long, and I will remind you that you're going to want to preheat that oven. Then when it's baked and done, because it has powders on the surface, I always recommend that you put a little clear coating on there just to protect it, but you don't want anything too shiny. So the Swelligant sealer is perfect. It's a lovely little finish, but you can also use any of the sealant and glazes that the clay manufacturers make for polymer clay. That will work terrifically. And then you're done. You can put it on a chain, on a cord, and go on out to the steampunk ball and knock them dead. And if you're interested in more steampunkery, well, guess what? I've got a book all about it. It is fantastic. It shows you all kinds of projects using that steampunk aesthetic. And it dabbles with powders, and it gets into Swelligant and textures and all kinds of fun things. So if you're into that sort of thing, check out that book.
Visit our Learning Center at cooltools.us for more cool jewelry making videos. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and be sure to sign up for our email list to be the first to hear about new videos, new products, and other cool stuff from Cool Tools.